this chapter 14 was talked about kind of how this traditional form of the 1950s marriage kind of came to be and how it wasn't necessarily as perfect as it seemed, and it wasn't necessarily as traditional as everybody thought it was. I think on page 230 she says it was seen as the only culturally acceptable route to adulthood and independence. So a lot of people were like, this is the only way to be in like the perfect marriage. You have to live in a male breadwinner family. You have to get married. You have to get married young. If you have a child out of wedlock, you have to marry that person. Otherwise, you're going to have to like give them up for adoption, and then you're going to have to get married. You're going to like start again, and there's no other options. Like, this is it. This is like the only culturally acceptable. Women work in the home. The greatest thing, your like culturally acceptable thing, is to become a housemaker. Of course, like they were talking about African American women, kind of went under the radar a little bit, and they were able to work and like do housework at the same time, and that was pretty cool. But they said for the majority of people, the highest, I don't know, like achievement, so to say, would be the male working economically, and then the female doing all the housework and child rearing. But clearly that didn't work out super well, and marriage counseling had a few ideas, and a few people had like, oh, why aren't the women happy? It could possibly be because we don't have careers, so what are some other things that we could be doing? So this is like kind of what I thought was interesting. A few solutions that they had to our unhappiness in marriage was like, we could become glamour girls, so we could control sex and like make that exciting, and you know, make that kind of our role in life and make that kind of our career, so to say. Or we could devote ourselves to the arts and community and volunteering, and clearly that's preferable to the former. Or we could like accept it and consider it normal and just try to work around it and say, oh yeah, I support men, and like try to, like, this is one of the things that they said, just like consider it normal. So just kind of like try to wrap your head around it. You're unhappy because you're not normal, like you're irregular. And I feel like this is like, it was so weird how fast the culture changed that way, and people are like, oh my gosh, I'm not traditional. And it's like, this is what didn't happen for this long. It's 10 years, it's 5 years. How on earth did our brains shift this fast? It's like, how on earth did we say this is normal, this is not normal this fast? And then people are like, oh my gosh, because I don't fit into this, I'm not normal, and I have to conform to this way of thinking, and that's why I'm unhappy. And I feel like they talked about this in terms of divorce as well, and they said, oh my gosh, if this marriage doesn't work and we divorce, it's my fault. It's not possibly because the gender roles are so messed up. No, it's because the individuals are, it's because it's our fault and we didn't make it work right. And so part of the other issue was that consumerism was happening, and a lot of like happy, perfect marriages or like really bad marriages were happening. You could like clearly see the flaws, the bad marriage. Like everybody wanted to emulate the perfect marriage, and they just couldn't figure out why theirs wasn't working as happily and perfectly, so to say, as theirs were. I also thought it was interesting how like illegitimate was stamped on like birth certificates and school records at this time. So this sounds like a time of almost like shotgun weddings. I kind of touched on this earlier. You kind of marry the first person you had a baby with if you had sex before marriage. So I think that that's like interesting during this time frame of perfect marriage, and now you're also just having illegitimate children in your society of perfect marriage. I don't know how that kind of works. So that's really weird, but I also, yeah, that's really weird to me. I don't quite understand that. So I think this quote from page 240 kind of sums it up for me. It is clear that in many 1950 marriages, How expectations could lead people to put up with truly terrible family lives. She's saying, yeah, how low expectations could lead people to put up with truly terrible family lives. Yeah, it wasn't great. People weren't exactly happy, but they made it work because they thought it was normal and they thought that it was their fault that it wasn't working. And they said, okay, fine, we're happy, I guess. And I think that's kind of interesting for me. Yeah.